Jimin, anything to
Oh
add to
yeah.
that?
Uh, well, like Max mentioned, there was several opposition lawmakers raising possibility of a martial law back in July 2024, some months before the actual martial. And at that time, many people thought it was a joke, or since the government came out to with really a strong denial, people really didn't buy that. So did I a bit, because the opposition lawmakers didn't really have like a solid proof other than saying, military generals, were having a secret meeting and they were discussing a potential martial. But other than that, there wasn't really a strong evidence for me. Like for me. Um, so yeah, I think I was like same with Max. I thought it wasn't that realistic, and well, it's been rumored too that President Yoon had really a far right ideas. Has very extreme, political thoughts. But and also like Chang mentioned, he's been cornered. His wife was mired in a couple of scandals. He himself has some issues, troubles with this power broker, like named Myung Tae-kyun. He's been cornered politically, but we didn't really think he chose to impose martial to go, to weather this political storm.
But he didn't always have these ideas, right? I mean, my understanding is that he started out as sort of a liberal hero for putting conservative politicians in prison when he was a prosecutor. When and why did his transformation take place? How did he become this right-wing figure?
I I think, as a prosecutor, nobody really knew his, political ideologies, or, they just saw him as a politically neutral prosecutor, although this would, turn out to be not the case at all. But really, when he sort of joined the Conservative Party to run for president, um, he has to cater or pander to South Korea's conservative base, and that usually involves a certain amount of, red baiting. Um, and I think it was a gradual process over time as he sort of, battled the liberals. He kind of dug himself these into that sort of camp. Um, and yeah, so I think it was a gradual process. I'll let the others chime in.
I think the moment that he got, uh, he kind of shifted toward conservative from liberals. I think there was a time that he, as a the chief prosecutor, um, chairman of like prosecutor's office. I think he went after, uh, at that time, a justice minister who was a very close ally of then President Moon Jae-in, the liberal Moon Jae-in. Um, that time, like conservatives kind of started supporting uh, Yoon, although he was still, prosecutor for the liberal, president. And he kind of politically, kind of shifted toward the conservative at that time. I don't remember what year, but it was in the middle of, liberal President Moon Jae-in's term. And then, he left the prosecutor's office and, he entered politics after that.
So, like, it was shocking that he did this, but I think just as shocking was how quickly it ended. It's like he did this, but then he didn't have like any commitment to it. That's what it sort of looked like from here. Um, why did it end so quickly?
I
Um,
I think the Hangang, the Nobel Prize winner, summed up really well. She said she had this question of, can the past help the future? Can the dead can save the alive? I think the experience, the historical experience, or the education and the people South Korean had throughout these last 40 years, they know those military dictatorship and threats to their democracy cannot succeed. And I could feel that at that night, December 3rd, nobody had a second thoughts and nobody had a war afraid, and they knew what military dictatorship and martial law can bring to them and to their democracy. So when I went there, I was thinking about whether the military will actually fire the shots or not, and I didn't think so. And I kind of had the trust in them because we all know, and South Koreans went through this democracy period for like last 45 years, and they know what it is like before under the dictatorship. So I didn't think that all these soldiers would fire anything into the people. So I think that really helped. And the people and President Yoon himself probably realized after he declared the martial law that the soldiers were not following his orders. You know? So that really made a big change.
that's really That's really interesting. So you see this as ultimately a victory for democracy.
I do, yes. It was possible because people uh, who actually uh, uh, kept the democracy from the military dictatorship 45 years ago. And personally, I have this feeling of I owe myself to those people in 45 years ago when there were a lot of protests against dictatorship because I went to America at that time. But I always thought about this. If those people in 80s who didn't know what their future could be and risk their lives doing protesting against dictatorship. But now, benefit of that, every Korean have really enjoyed the freedom and democracy. And once we know it, we cannot go back. And I think that was the result of the martial law on December 3rd.
Well, you've perfectly set up my next question here, which is that the early coverage of this suggested that the
Mhm.
entire country was against Yoon and that even his own party would turn against him, that he had done this thing that was so egregious, there was no tolerance for this at all. And now it seems like that picture has shifted. There was a Gallup poll this month showing that his party uh, actually now has an advantage over the Democratic Party, 39% to 36%. And this is the first time that they had been ahead since August. 57% were still supporting his removal from office, but that's a sizable chunk of the population that is if I'm reading this correctly, thinking it's okay for him to remain in office. How do you explain the shift, and more generally, what is going on in the court of public opinion on this? Um,
But I think we need to be really careful about looking at the public polls, and some critics point out that some of them are over sampled by the right wing people, about 15%. Um, I think that's we need to be really careful about looking at the numbers. But also, I think I think there is a little disappointment about what is going on. Is the process of impeaching Yoon has not been going fast enough, and that kind of give the opposition party, Democratic Party, less points for that too.
Jumin, you wrote in an article on January 17th that Yoon sees a glimmer of hope that his presidency can still be saved. Is he correct, or is he dreaming?
That I'm not sure, but the thing is, as you mentioned, Alan, about polls numbers, we see. I'm just looking at today's. I think the poll published last night or something. It's the people who actually oppose his impeachment. 10%, I think, or 13% point. Increased than before. So normally it's about, I think, 38% of people. 30, I'm just looking at one poll, 39% of people actually oppose his impeachment. That's, although still people, a majority of people still support his impeachment, his removal from the office, but a lot of people still, they are against his removal. I mean, we need to be careful about these polls, but when I remember covering last impeachment of President Park Geun-hye, like 80% think she should be gone. Right now, it's 30% is quite a large number given compared to the last time. And yeah, I wonder why there is a big difference from the last impeachment and this Yoon. And I think one of the reasons is because Korean politics. I think maybe it's in American politics as well. Very polarized, and and far right and far left. You know, their support is very solid, and whenever there is a crisis, you know, people, the far right, supporters, their support is getting cemented, and that kind of is showing up in polls as well. And last time President Park Geun-hye, who was also impeached and removal from office, she kind of apologized, and she kind of yeah, she apologized, and but as opposed to Park Yoon, he's pledging to fight back, and he kind of, he said he will never give up, and he keep buying, he keep spreading this far right messages to their his supporters around his jail, and he keeps sending letters to his supporters at rallies, and he keeps trying to solidifying his support base. And that's one of the reasons why we see some rising ratings for his party, and rising ratings for those who are against his his impeachment.